Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in the workplace and beyond and look for solutions. And today, I am thrilled to have Jeannette Bennett with me.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited. Let me tell you a little bit about Jeannette if you haven't heard already, but Jeanette's this is her third life, right? She just told me earlier.
Three
Feels
concurrent
like she's
lives.
living three lives, three
Yes.
confirmed lives, yes. Jeannette started Utah Valley Magazine 24 years ago, back when things were simpler, right? With a big vision and a big love for the community. She has since grown the company to include Business Q magazine, the UV50, and the Parade of Homes magazines around the state. Jeannette earned her bachelor's and master's degrees in communications from BYU, and she was awarded an honorary doctorate in business from UVU. In 2023, Jeannette was inducted into the Silicon Slopes Hall of Fame. In 2018, she was named Top Woman Entrepreneur in Media during a luncheon in New York City along with Martha Stewart. She is the chair-elect of the United Way of Utah County and has recently joined the board at Thanksgiving Point as Chief Visionary Officer. Jeannette is the mother of 5, a cancer survivor, and a former state Senate candidate and a cheerleader for Utah. Well, that explains all the lives you're living right now.
Yes, and there's a new one.
Okay, what's the new one?
I'm the CEO of Colliers Commercial Real Estate.
I knew that.
Yeah,
I just pulled this off your website.
So I need to update my
by the way.
website. Yeah. Let me get mentally well so I can remember to do that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I've been there a year. So I'm juggling the other things as well, but added that to the plate a year ago.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's been a fun adventure. I'm learning a lot.
Isn't it so interesting, again, from just kind of these small beginnings and these big visions, but you just never know, right?
You don't know what doors will open.
Yeah.
One of my life philosophies has been open all the doors, and I tell my kids as they go through their teenage years, like, open all the doors.
Yeah.
Talk to all the people, ask all the questions, do all the internships, like open doors, and they'll lead places you didn't even imagine.
It's so true. And we limit ourselves so much by not doing that.
I think we do. Or if we get fixated on an outcome.
Exactly.
Instead of being open to the journey as it unfolds.
I totally agree. I agree. Well, tell me about your interest in mental health because, so you're busy with all these things.
Yes.
And here this guy reaches out to you that doesn't even know you. And you're like, I'd love to do the podcast. So tell me.
So when I was 10, my grandmother, so my dad's mom, she died by suicide. And at the time, we were not told as kids the cause of death.
Okay.
It was very mysterious. There was a lot of whispering. There was a lot of closed-door meetings. And as cousins, we were trying to piece together what we knew. So here's what I learned. I learned that at that point, mental health was a shameful topic.
Yeah.
They didn't want to talk about it. Her funeral didn't mention that. And, it was a matter of 2 weeks after the funeral where my parents sat us down and did explain what happened. But I think I internalized this message of, grandma was broken and this is embarrassing.
Right.
And it led me to have a real interest in, I wonder what she had experienced. And I wish I could have, as a 10-year-old, done something, anything to help her or show her love. Or maybe if I'd written her one more letter, or maybe if I'd drawn her a picture or something. It gave me some interest and some fascination. Also, my grandparents were successful. My grandpa was a pilot and active in their church and active in their community and maybe not who I would have suspected at the time would have struggled. So I learned a lot of things from what was said and what was not said. And so I became very interested in the mental health of my family members and myself. And so I think that's where it began. And then I've watched myself and family members experience some mental health struggles and to talk about them and to talk about the therapy and to talk about the struggles and the thoughts. And I see that as really healthy. And also at this stage in my career, because like you said, we started the magazines. It was in 2000. So later this fall will be our 25th anniversary issue of the publishing company. I have seen an evolution in the community of talking about it.
Yes.
And I love that. And I'm fascinated with that. And my ears perk up when people do talk about it and it becomes a topic. So when you reached out, I was like, I'm so glad this podcast exists. And I'd like to have the conversation to see what I can learn and if there's anything I could contribute.
That's amazing. Yeah, I totally agree that there's the stigma is breaking down, and it's nice. It's nice to see that. And I don't know, maybe just because we're talking about it more, or just willing to acknowledge it, right? I mean, your grandparents, like you said, they're successful, but that is not a remedy
Oh,
for mental
absolutely
health.
not. I think I thought one equated
Yeah.
to the other, but
No, they
but
don't.
that's not the case.
No.
And what I've learned, so when I started the magazine and I was 25 and my husband and I started it and a small staff that grew a little bit over time, I was trying to act older, bigger, more successful than I was, so that when I was calling Blake Roney and others, it's like, oh, we have a magazine and we're so, and so I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to say, oh, I'm struggling with this or I don't know about that. And over time, as I gained in confidence and I became more vulnerable at times, I realized what a source of connection vulnerability was. And it felt like I could or didn't choose to exhibit that in the beginning. But I feel like that was a turning point in running my own company when I could say to others, like, I'm actually struggling. I don't know how to hire and fire, I'm overwhelmed. I should, as the leader, as the CEO of this company, I should have it all together. But guess what? I'm lost.
Yes.
I'm not motivated today, or, I'm not sure I believe in what we're doing today, that kind of a thing. But I have found that vulnerability leads to connection, whether it's people I interviewed, business partners, even employees, which sometimes it's hard to open up to them. But even when that happens, that connection can go both ways. And it's such a beautiful thing. And it deepens relationships and connection,
Absolutely.
which helps with mental health.
Yep.
So it is this beautiful, virtuous cycle.
And it starts with, like you said, with a person deciding that they're going to kind of admit their weakness and be okay with that.
Right.
And that's the biggest blockade most of the time is that people say, well, I just don't want to show that to anyone. And it really has the opposite effect. Like you're saying, you leading the businesses that you do, you're looked up to by a lot of people. And my guess is that a lot of those people probably have created a narrative in their mind about what Jeanette is like. And it's probably a very polished, positive sort of thing. And
perhaps so. May not realize that I have insecurities.
Exactly.
I have weaknesses. I have hard days.
Exactly. And for people to be aware of that, I think especially from the top down, because I do mental health consulting for businesses, and that's one of the things that we talk about often is the unspoken messages that are sent throughout business about mental health, vulnerability, those sorts of things. We have to be very careful about those sorts of things because people do create their own fictions. And in as much as those are inaccurate, then it leads them to different places and oftentimes less healthy places. Where if someone just says, you know what, I'm struggling as well, I think there's just a collective sigh of relief that comes from everyone that's kind of downstream of that person.
No, I agree. And I also think that we need to realize, and we need to realize it in others as well, that if there's a weakness, that's not the defining characteristic.
Yes.
We're not our worst day. We're not our weakness. We are amazing people who sometimes have some struggles. So I think when, if an employee or someone confides in me a struggle that they're having, I really try to see that as not the main thing I'm going to remember about them forevermore, but just, okay, this person trusted me enough and was honest enough to say this, and now I'm on their team.
Yeah.
Now I want to see what we can do to help. And I think that's why at times I've been hesitant to share with people, oh, this is my struggle, because I don't want them to see that, oh, she's weak. There's this thing, like, especially as a woman in this community and as a young CEO and things, where I didn't want to show weakness because I in my mind, I'm like, well, they already think I'm weak. So if I give them any reason to confirm that, then we're sunk. I'm in a different place now than I was in the beginning, but those were some of my early thoughts of why I didn't want to share some of my struggles, perhaps.
Yeah. But it doesn't do anybody any favors.
No, it really doesn't.
That information, it doesn't. And the opposite, it just deepens things. Like you said, that vulnerability deepens relationships and strengthens them. Yeah, totally.
It's true. I mean, the truth of it is, I don't want to be on a pedestal. I don't want people to assume that I'm always going to have the perfect day and I'm going to say every perfect thing and I'm always going to look put together and this and that. Because if you are going to crash down a pedestal if you're there very long, right? And so I'd rather just not be on it and just be like, hey, I'm a real person. I'm over here. I'm super grateful and I have a really awesome life, but I got some few things I'm working on, and today happens to be one of those days where I'm working on a little extra. I'd rather be in that place where because I think people cheer for people who show vulnerability.
Yes.
They want you to get through your hard days.
Yeah.
And I actually do think people can be pretty forgiving too. They're less forgiving of people who portray perfection.
Yes.
I think sometimes we want to poke holes in a perfect facade. But if someone's like, hey, you know what? I'm super happy and grateful, but I'm struggling. I think then you become someone people can cheer for.
I think they do 100%. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you've accomplished significant amounts in the last 25 years. Tell us, like, behind the scenes, like in terms of resilience and determination. I mean, how do you get there? Because people are going to be listening, and whether you want to be on a pedestal or not, although wouldn't it be great if we put people on pedestals that were like real? Wouldn't that be
Right.
the best thing?
That
Let's
would
just say,
do.
I want to be like that person because she's real, because she's authentic, because
Because she
because I
failed
can
but
see her
didn't give
warts,
up.
those sorts
Yes.
of things.
Yeah, so I do think I came to earth and developed like maybe an extra dose of ambition and excitement and some hidden confidence. My elementary school teachers always described me as shy. I was a listener. I never liked the word shy because I thought that was a weakness.
Right.
I would look at the class clowns and the confident people and I'd be like, I want more of that. But I was observing, I was taking it in and developing my confidence in a different way. And then by the time I came to high school, I was on student council and I was the editor of the paper and, doing the things that I wanted to do. I'd grown a little bit in my confidence that way. And then, honestly, what led to the start of the publishing company was me becoming a mom. So my husband and I had both graduated in journalism, worked for the Deseret News and some different publishing entities. And then when I became a mom, and my son will be 20, my oldest will be 28 this fall, there was not remote work at that time. It's a different world.
Right.
I was working at the Deseret News, and I didn't want to continue commuting downtown and putting in a long day away from my baby. It just wasn't what I saw for myself at that moment. And so that's when the entrepreneurial skills kicked in. I had done a minor in business because I thought I'd write about business. But then when my worlds collided, I feel like, motherhood and my career, that's when entrepreneurism became the solution. So my motivation was very much the flexibility to try and be the mom and the entrepreneur. That was really my metric of success. That's one thing that I've learned over time is my metrics of success have changed. They have evolved with each chapter. And at times my metric was being home after school. Like I'm not even chasing a number. I'm not even trying to grow the company this year. And what I found is if I live my own metric of success, I'm a lot healthier and happier than if I take on someone else's definition of my success that is a number or it is a growth pattern for your company or it is selling or it's this or that. That's an uncomfortable place to be, is take on other people's expectations. And so when I'm at my best, I'm playing my own game. And I've always kind of felt like I am in my own lane. There's not like someone else in the state where I'm like, oh, we're two peas in a pod. I feel like I've had my own journey and my own path. And everybody does. No two paths are the same. But I particularly, I feel like adopted that. Like I'm doing my own thing. And I think that's been a real key to my success. And by success, I mean the metrics that I use.
Metric exactly. That you're meeting your metric.
Right, exactly.
At least striving to meet your metric, right? Because there's some days when you probably don't meet it.
Oh, for sure.
Exactly.
There's a lot of days I don't. I try to be too many things to too many people and end up being nothing to nobody.
Try doing 4 lives instead of 3 lives.
Yeah,
right?
try that.
Exactly.
Try that for once.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think that there's an element of there's obviously the confidence you talked about, and as the confidence grew, as you learned more about yourself and started doing things. But setting your own measure of success, I think, is key in that.
I agree.
Because when you allow other people to dictate that, it's such a challenge. I tell people that all the time in working with them in mental health and say, you don't have to, it's not what someone else thinks or what someone else perceives about you. This is about what you think about yourself, and you have control over that.
And that's a really freeing thought when you finally adopt that.
It's so freeing.
That you're not playing a game or trying to impress someone that you don't even know what that looks like. You get to control what you're pursuing and again, your metrics of success.
And when the other person sets the metric, not only are you chasing something you don't have control over, but then it changes, right?
So true.
Exactly. It's changing. And then you think you've reached it and all of a sudden it changes and you're like, oh, now what do I have to do? I know it's got to be so frustrating.
I know. And there have been times that I've had roles in the community or in church or something that I think, this revolves around me, right? And then when that ends and you see that the organization, the group carries on without you, you're like, why did I care so much? Why did I define myself by that? So again, that comes back to you've got to keep it internal, right? Because that's what can last and that's what you can control. But if you put on other people's expectations, it really is a recipe for the opposite of mental wellness.
Yeah, it is. I wish we could all have that experience of realizing just how inconsequential we are to
I
certain
know.
things, but we're very consequential in some areas, like, to our families and other things.
Absolutely.
But in other areas, if we could just kind of triage that the way
I
in
know.
a more effective way.
I learned that lesson. So I ran for the state senate
Yeah.
a few years ago in the end of 2000,
How was
the end
that?
of 2020. It was fascinating. I'm
Yeah,
so glad I ran. I'm so glad I ran. I was encouraged to run. It was a special election, so it was just a 3-week
Okay.
run. They needed to fill the state senator spot in my area before the session began.
Right.
And I came in 2nd out of 6, which means nothing other than it feels like a slight victory to not be last. But at the end of that, I was processing that experience and like, why was I drawn to that? And how should I feel about this? And a couple things came of it. First of all, I mean, I didn't win. And yet I was like so grateful for the experience. And in a way, it actually did grow my confidence. You might think losing would dash your confidence and you
Right.
wouldn't want to go walk through Walmart and run into people. But it actually gave me confidence. I was like, I just did something super hard. I did something that almost none of you were willing to do.
Right.
You know?
Right. Seriously.
And it built my confidence. But also, I started thinking about, what are the things that only I could do? What are the things that only Jeannette Bennett's skill set is made for? And I actually decided politics wasn't it.
Yeah.
But it kind of took that experience for me to realize there's lots of people that could do this.
Yeah.
There's maybe some things that maybe only I could do, or maybe I'm particularly equipped for. And so that was a process of opening that political door and then almost pulling it back shut, just
Right.
realizing, okay, maybe that isn't for me. Maybe that's not what I need to do or should do with my time, but it was a super cool experience. And I actually got a text from my son the next morning. It's one of those texts you screenshot and you're like, okay, that was a good moment, where he said, "Mom, I watched you fail, but I watched it not crush you." And it was so good for me because he says, I've stopped short of trying things sometimes because I'm worried I'm going to fail.
He's gonna fail.
But watching you fail taught me something. And I was like,
Oh, that's amazing.
That was cool. I mean, I didn't set out to do it as a parenting example of any kind, but to know that maybe he and maybe others were watching, I wasn't going to stop posting or stop being me just because I lost something.
Yeah.
That doesn't define me. Actually, running does define. That's why I still have in my bio that I ran, because I'm actually proud that I ran. Right. That I jumped in and experienced that, and it wasn't like the winning outcome, but that doesn't mean it was a failure.
Yeah.
I learned about the process. That's a win.
Exactly.
I met a lot of new people. That's a win. I'm a better voter now, and a better state delegate, and all the different roles that I've had and will have. I'm a better person. So that's a win. So you just have to kind of redefine experiences sometimes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking as you're describing just your perceptions of that overall experience of the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And you could look at it in many different ways. You could look at it from a deficit mindset or from an abundance mindset. And you're looking at it from an abundance mindset. You're looking at, what did I learn from this?
Right.
What are things I achieved through this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important.
And I think we could take that to anything. If you have a relationship that fails or that ends, maybe, of any kind, a friendship or marriage or a business partnership or something, well, what did I take with me from that? There's always something.
I have a good friend who he's been single longer than he'd like to be. Mm-hmm. And he finally got a girlfriend after a long time, and it looked like it was going to maybe materialize into them being married, but it didn't. And I remember writing him after that and telling him all the things that he learned because of that, because of that relationship.
That's
just
beautiful.
saying these are the things that you know about yourself now that you didn't know before because you entered into this relationship. And I think there's always something like that. Any so-called failure, which maybe it's not even a failure when you finally turn it around and look at it in a different light, we can see, oh, these are the things that I gained from that. We tend to be so negatively focused at times that all we do is see the detriment.
I agree, and I think it requires us to be curious.
Yes.
And I think that's an under-celebrated trait, just curiosity. So be curious about what that experience did for you, what you learned. I tell my kids when they have, their first starter job at a fast food restaurant or delivering newspaper, whatever they're doing, like, be curious. Watch the leaders that you're surrounded by. Watch customer service. Watch, how you're treated and how people react when you react certain ways. And just stay curious. When I've had interns at the magazine, I can tell if they're going to be a success when they sit through a staff meeting and if they're bored, because we're talking at one point about maybe the finances, which isn't something they're going to be involved in. And if they tune out, like, curiosity is low. You need to crank up that curiosity, especially at the start of your career, to take it all in. Watch who's actually leading the meeting. It might not be the person with the title. Someone else might actually be running the meeting emotionally. There's so many things that curiosity will teach you. And like your friend with his relationship, if you're just curious, how did I change through that? What did I learn?
Right.
What could I do differently next time? Or what is there to be grateful for? I think those positive moments of self-analysis are really valuable.
Yeah. And it's available all the time to everybody. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest secrets maybe about improving mental health, is that it's just these small little things, just these small changes in perception that we can do over time.
Mm-hmm.
And literally changing the way you look at something is going to change the way you feel about it. It's going to change the way you experience it. And we have the power to do that.
Isn't that amazing?
It's so amazing.
Sometimes we give up our power, but if we reclaim it, then we're definitely in charge.
Oh yeah, I'd be out of a job soon, as a psychologist.
Let's keep you employed.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love to be out of a psychologist job just because people had figured it out and were able to manage those things on their own. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be gainfully employed for a long time.
We need you.
I do want to ask about the efforts you make in philanthropy, because that's something I love as well. So what kind of led you into that? How did you get started? Why devote your time? Because like you said, you're busy doing other things, and here you are volunteering on boards and other things.
Yes. When the magazine was new and I would get asked to sit on boards or to MC an event or be part of a nonprofit of some kind or another, I almost always said yes. If I could, I would say yes. It was opening the doors, like I was talking about earlier. I wanted to meet people. I also feel like there's this beautiful law of reciprocity that exists in the universe, that when we give, when we're open-handed to give to others, that there is a reward that comes back. And I've watched so many individuals and companies that have that philosophy of let's give what we can, and I've watched that be a blessing to them. And so I've tried to incorporate that philosophy. My dad was a school teacher, 7 kids. We were not a philanthropist family.
Sure.
And I remember thinking, when my parents would turn away the kids selling the cookie dough or something, I'd be like, oh, I want to buy the cookie dough someday. I want to buy whatever the kids are selling. And so I just think I had in my heart that I wanted to give. Now, I've given a lot more time than money, I would say, and I've given a lot of free ads through the years, those kinds of things. But I've watched in a community, we need all types of people. We need people who will give the abundance of their time. We do need the people to write $1 million checks. We need people to work as a career in these nonprofits. It really takes a village. That cliche is true. So I think I started in the beginning as a way to open doors for the magazine and a way to meet other people. And then it's just become part of the fabric of who I want to be, right? Yeah. So now that I'm spending most of my time running Colliers, commercial real estate, like that's awesome. I love real estate. I love building Utah. That's what I really love. But the spice of life is out doing these things in the community with other people. That brings me a lot of joy. And I feel so much gratitude. We have over 10,000 nonprofits in the state of Utah. So I chaired Utah Philanthropy Day for a few years, and that's one of the things that I learned. And we tried to celebrate those nonprofits. There's a lot of people in this state that see a need and try to figure out how to serve. I love that. That's amazing to me. So that's kind of the genesis of how I got involved. And currently, it's probably about a third of my time that I spend on boards with UVU and United Way and Thanksgiving Point, Utah Philanthropy Day, other things that I either MC or contribute to with my time or money. And I just find a lot of satisfaction there. Yeah. And I find a lot of either like-minded people or people that are far beyond who I am that I want to be more like. And I do think we get blessed. I look at John Huntsman Sr., I think it was his book, Winners Never Cheat, where he talked about how he gave when he had nothing. Yeah. Yeah. And I just look at that and I'm like, wow, he put $50 in a mailbox of a single woman down the road. And then that law of reciprocity led to where he can give millions, and his kids do that now in his name as well. And I think Utah's really great at that. I think we have a lot of families and individuals who really understand the importance of philanthropy and of giving, and how that's actually a good business principle and a good mental wellness principle. I also read a financial planner article. This wasn't a religious person at all, but this was early on in the growing of my business. And this man recommended giving away 5 to 10% of your income as a way of realizing that money wasn't everything. Right. And as a way of seeing, like, you're not the end all be all. Like, give out and help, give things away, help people, build it, and then you'll keep things in perspective. It won't be all about just hoarding money to you. And I thought that was a good mental health exercise and an exercise in not being your bank account.
Yep.
You know,
when you get exposed to different populations as well, when you start to reach down and help people that are really in need, and again, you can learn so many things as well. When I was working in Washington State, I did a lot of work with homeless populations for a while and mental health. And I'd have people come into my office that had slept in the rain, the night before, and it smelled like it, all that. And I remember one very particular thing. The night before, I had made the mistake of Googling how much money do I need in my 401k to retire, and I saw that number and compared it to my 401k.
How'd that feel?
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, and I was so distressed that whole night, and we had so much. We've been so blessed our entire lives, and we had plenty at that time. Our family was happy, and we were safe, and we were able to do all the things we needed and a lot of things we wanted to. So a man came in, sat down, and again, I could tell he'd slept outside the night before. And I said, well, let's talk about your mental health. It was for an assessment. And he says, well, I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety. He says, the anxiety is still kind of there. He says, the depression is not so bad because every day I wake up and I just think about all the good things in my life. And
that's beautiful.
It was beautiful. And I just felt so convicted in that moment. I just felt like the worst person, that I was so distressed over my circumstance that he would find to be a king's life,
Wow. That's a beautiful story.
And I thought, if he can do that, then I can do that as well. And then everyone can do that, right? We can look at the good things. I don't know what was so good about his life at that time, but he was finding good things in that. And we can all look for those things.
That reminds me of something that happened the first few years that I was doing the magazine. I interviewed Larry King. He was our cover story. And of course, he was amazing. He was kind. He's wealthy, has a home here in Utah, and he's passed away now, but at that time, and did this beautiful interview. Later that day, I interviewed a woman running a nonprofit, and I went to her home in Utah County, and I could see light coming in under the door, as I walked up to it. Like the door did not go all the way to the threshold. Came in and sat on a couch where I nearly sank to the ground and interviewed her about this nonprofit and learned that she'd grown up in foster care and that she'd had a hard life. And then when I asked her, so what is motivating you to do this? And she got teary and she said, I've just been blessed with so much. And I was so humbled by that. Yeah. And the contrast between interviewing Larry King, who was amazing, and then this woman who thought she'd been very blessed, and yet circumstances wouldn't have said that. Right. And I honestly cried all the way home. And that's one of the days in my career I won't forget, is these two people, both amazing, both living their lives, and both full of gratitude for what they had and a desire to give back because of what they'd been given. And it was really instructive. I've never forgotten that day and what that woman taught me.
It was the power of the attitude and not the power of the circumstance, right?
For sure.
The attitude mitigates circumstance all day long, if we'll let it. Jeanette, one of these days I need to do a 6-hour podcast with you because I'm so enjoying this conversation. But not today.
Okay. We'll hit pause.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it another time.
Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your wisdom and your spirit. You're remarkable.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for all the good you're doing.
I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.